Okay, so let's look at whether there is a crisis, and you probably gather that there is a crisis, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conference. During the past 3 or 4 decades, the great gift of the women's movement has been that it has opened up a lot of options for women, and we've had programs on girls' power. We have there's a federal catalog that is this thick, that is not this thick, but this thick, that is filled with program after program that's federally supported. This is outside of the state-supported programs, outside of the privately supported programs that are federally supported, that develop opportunities for girls, scholarships for girls, especially government monies for girls. There's girl power programs, there's girls networking programs. Male networking is illegal. Girls networking is part of what we federally subsidize. So all of these things have been happening for girls and for women, but mostly for girls in school for the past 35 years. But since 1978, which gender has been in the minority in colleges? Boys. So it's been since, basically 1969 to 70, a lot of these girls programs started. By 8 or 9 years later, there was the nexus had been reached, and girls had gone from being the minority in schools to the majority in schools, but scholarships were being given to girls as if they were still the minority gender from 78 to 2007, basically 29 years, that has been an outdated or an anachronistic type of modality. So what has happened to boys? Where are we at now? And some of these data, as you know, when I do my research, I update all the data. So some of this data that because I'm just beginning my research now, some of this data is very updated, some of this data is a few years old. Most of the data that's a few years old that I have had a chance to update has gotten worse in the last few years. So some of this is understated data in terms of the status of boys. The first is that boys already make up 2/3 of the learning disabled in school. 2/3. Boys are now 90% of the behaviorally disabled. When we look at the most seriously disabled, as opposed to the moderately disabled and less disabled, boys are very close to 100%, over 96% of the seriously disabled already. Depending on how you define seriously, you can get almost as high as 100%. But there's a lot of different estimates on the ratio for boys versus girls for ADD, ADHD. If you average the estimates, the better designed or the better documented ones, it appears to be that it's a 3-to-1 ratio of boys to girls with ADD and or ADHD. ADHD is a bit higher on the ratio. The number of boys who said that they didn't like school has increased by 71% between 1980 and 2001. So schools, from boys' perspective, when boys are asked, have gotten less boy-friendly between the 1970s and 2001. Anyone that's paid any attention to school knows about 100 reasons why that is the case. When you start eliminating recess, when you start eliminating dodgeball, when you can't, when a boy does his normal boy thing and it's now called sexual harassment, and he can be accused of that in junior high school, that becomes a problem that addresses the girls' side of the equation, but doesn't address the whole picture of the dynamic between boys and girls that creates the outcome of boys and girls getting together sexually. More on that later. That's a crucial issue. The sexual issue is a crucial issue that I have not seen addressed by anyone dealing with this issue. Boys ages 5 to 12 are 60% more likely than girls to have repeated at least one grade. You know that repeating a grade is obviously not just an academic issue, it is also what? It's a social issue, it's a psychological issue. When you repeat a grade, it is with you for the rest of your life. It's like being a short man in this culture. But repeating a grade is sort of like has a deep impact on many people, and they're compensating for it in one way or the other in the rest of their life. So that's a really major statistic and a major difference, and that's of course increased. The male-female gap has increased significantly. In neighborhoods where fathers are most scarce, this is probably one of the most powerful statistics to hold on to. In neighborhoods where fathers are most scarce, more than half of boys do not finish high school. In neighborhoods where fathers are most scarce, more than half of boys do not finish high school. A high percentage of girls don't, too, where fathers are scarce. If you want to help a girl the most, get her involved with her father. You want to help the boy the most, get him involved with his father. Fathers are a solution for both genders, but especially powerful for boys. The percentage of male undergraduates dropped to 24% from 1970 to 2000. Girls receive approximately 60% of the A's, and boys receive approximately what percentages of the D's and F's? 60?
35.
70% of the D's and F's received by our sons, boys. Girls are approximately 1.5 years ahead of boys in reading and writing competency. 1.5 years difference between boys and girls in reading and writing competency. Boys are 90% of the discipline problems in school, as well as 80% of the dropouts. For every girl who commits suicide, what's the ratio of boys to do? 4-to-1 overall. Which one here's something more fascinating about that? I'll be getting into this a little bit later. When boys and girls are 9 years of age, the ratio of male to female suicide rate is what?
Even.
Even, you said? It is even, exactly what you said. It's very minimal at the age of 9, and it is exactly correct, it's even. Between the ages of 10 and 14, it goes to a ratio of 2-to-1. Boys are twice as likely between the ages of 10 and 14 to commit suicide. So I'll be right with you in a second on that. So observe now what I'm going to be doing in relation to as the rules and the obligations and the expectation of puberty set in, of adolescence set in, which is where we learn our gender roles. Prior to the age of 9, gender roles are much more fluid and nobody really channels you that much. But when you're starting to get into sexual interests in the other sex, that's when gender roles begin to speak more profoundly. And so between the ages of 10 and 14, the ratio, suicide ratio goes to 2-to-1. Between the ages of 15 and 19, it is what? 4-to-1. Yeah, you're good. And between the ages of 20 and 26, it goes up to 6-to-1. It eventually goes a little bit back down again and goes to about 3-to-1 for a while, particularly as men are married and have children. It goes down significantly. But it's still always a significantly greater ratio of males to females, never getting less than 2.5-to-1. Then it starts going up again. By the age of 85, the ratio, males, no longer boys at 85, males commit suicide, what percentage more frequently than girls? Men at the age of 85 or older commit suicide, what percentage more frequently than women at age 85 or over? One more guess?
10-to-1.
10-to-1? It's 13.5-to-1. 1,350% is likely to commit suicide as males. Now, there's two significant points there. One is the data.